everyone, it's Justine and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be creating a whole bunch of different cards showing you many tips and tricks on how you can use a really cool cover die, as well as these really fun new papers from the stamp market. So they came out with these two paper packs called Color Crush Solids and Color Crush Patterns, and they both coordinate with each other. They give you a beautiful solid background for each one. They're double-sided and they're fairly thin, so they work really well for layering onto your cards without adding a ton of bulk weight. And I use these kind of interchangeably all together to show that they all really coordinate quite well. And you see that all the colors in both packages are the exact same tones, so they mix and match interchangeably really well. And I'm going to be using these with the stamp and die mainly that are circles and sentiments, as well as the circle card cover die from the stamp market. Now these are really versatile because you can mix and match between cutting out patterned paper, stamping these patterns inside your cover plate die, etc. So let's see how they work. I die cut this with my Gemini Junior die cutting machine, and I cut out a whole bunch of these in white cardstock as well as the different pattern papers that came in this card kit, and I'm setting everything off to the side for right now. So I found the easiest way to go about stamping this is to stamp in bulk, which is why I created several different cards with this cover die. So what I did was I took my frame and I grabbed a pencil and I just went along with my pencil here to show where I'm going to be stamping the circle. And I only really had to do this one time because I'm stamping all of them at the same time, which means that I'm able to bulk stamp, because it's the Misti, very easily. So I'm just tracing all of these circles so I know whereabouts that they are. And when I remove my frame so I can use it later, you'll see that I have this template all set up here on my Misti. So all I need to do is I need to go ahead and grab the coordinating stamp here, and there very well could be an easier way to do this, but I just found this to be my most comfortable way. So I lined up my stamp with the circle that I had traced, and what I'm going to do is I am going to now stamp all of the card panels that I intend to use in various shades and colors, and I'm going to keep this stamp in the same spot, and I keep my card panel that measures 4 by 5 1/4 tucked into the bottom left corner of my Misti. This way it's always going to stamp in the same spot on all my cards. So I don't have to go in and trace this line on every single one of my cards because I'm able to stamp in the same spot. So first I stamped in Be Mine from Handwritten ink, which is a beautiful pink color. I then decided to stamp in some nice black, and I double stamped that to make sure it's nice and dark. I went ahead and I cleaned my stamp obviously in between. Then I went in with some Melon Ice, which I thought was pretty close to that sort of greenish yellow color they used in the stamp package. Then I used Mint to Be, and now I'm just going to go ahead and flip my card panel around in the Misti, grab the largest circle here, and I'm going to stamp in similar colors, but I am going to use a different color on each of the card panels. You can also grab the frame if you want and use that instead of using the lines. That works as well to make it a bit easier anyway. And I'm going ahead again in the exact same colors that I used before. The Melon Ice, and of course cleaning off my stamp in between, Mint to Be, and several other colors. Now the nice thing about Handwritten inks is you don't really need to worry about them contaminating. Some ink colors or ink brands, when you do this, it's going to be a little bit difficult to use all these different colors without thoroughly cleaning your stamp in between. That's what I like so much about Handwritten is the fact that I am actually able to go in and I'm able to not worry about contamination because her inks don't contaminate. If I stamp in red and then stamp in yellow, I won't get any residue. It's awesome. So now I flipped over my card again. I'm using this smaller circular stamp here. And you'll notice that I'm actually using the frame to line up. I ended up finding that a little bit easier than doing the pencil marks. I think I did my pencil marks a little bit too light. Just need to make sure that with the Misti you hover over, make sure it's in the right spot according to your pencil lines. So I went in and added this larger stamp here on this side. So mainly I really didn't want all my cards to have the same area stamped and the same area with pattern paper, so I switched it up a little bit. But you can of course create all your cards so you don't have to do as much stamp changing in between, and that will work as well. So I'm just going in with those final little colors here and going through each one of them. And for me, these cards in the end turned out to be quite busy. However, I really like them. I thought they had sort of like a country cottage feel and were kind of kitschy, and I thought they were super cute in the end. Now, of course, you can leave out some of the patterns, make some of the circles white, etc. if you'd like to have a more clean and simple card. So now I'm just folding my card bases 4 by 5 1/4. I keep these always pre-cut next to my desk, 5 1/2 by 8 1/2, and then I just fold them when I need them. And I find that this just really saves me a lot of time with my card making. So now comes the fun part. I've gone ahead and I've glued all of the frames that I previously die cut. Some are white and some are in patterned paper. The ones that were in patterned paper, I tried to use the more lighter colors of stamping and patterned paper so they didn't seem as busy. And the ones with the white, I was able to go a little bit more wild with the colors. So it's just up to you how you want to go ahead and add all the pieces in. I like this die because, again, the possibilities really are endless. You don't have to use patterned paper from the stamp market. You can use any patterned paper, any solid paper that you have. You could use mirror cardstock, glitter cardstock. It's completely up to you. And I like the fact that you can go ahead and stamp in coordinating colors if you choose to do that. So these are just really a fun die. You can get so much out of it. It's not too often I use a cover plate die because I find them a little bit on the pricier side, and I want to make sure that when I have a cover plate die, it's something that I can use in a variety of ways. And I hope that this video here shows you how you can do just that. And I'm sure you can find many dies in your stash if you have any cover plate dies that can do the things that I'm showing here. You could, of course, add any mediums too. Use this as a stencil and stencil over top of it if you cut it out in vellum, for example, or acetate. You could go ahead and watercolor behind it. It is completely up to you. So I wanted to show some of the backgrounds that I created. Some of them I really love, and some of them I didn't really care for. So in my final pictures and stuff, you'll notice some of them I didn't end up using. But I just wanted to show you how cute these all turned out and how many panels I ended up getting out of them by cutting them interchangeably like that. Now, not only did I get a lot of patterns out of this cover plate die, stamp, and then the paper pack, but I also went in with the paper pack and I cut some of them at 4 by 5 1/4, and I mounted them onto some white cardstock. And you'll see that these backgrounds are just perfect for card making. Just add a simple sentiment and you're all good to go, which is what I'm going to show you now, is how I use the sentiments on all of these cards. The first stamp that I used is from the stamp market, again, called Handwritten Thanks Stamp. And this is just such a pretty one. And I used the small handwritten thank you on this one. I also wanted to mention, because I do like to put a disclosure in my videos now and again, that this video is not in any way sponsored by the stamp market. They are all products that I purchased myself, and I just absolutely have been loving the stamp market releases lately and had to have some of these products. So this is a true, honest video about, products that I really love that I wanted to keep in my craft room. Not products that were sent to me, nothing like that. So for this pattern paper, I thought it would be really fun to go in sort of a gradient look and have a tone-on-tone look, and I decided to stamp thank you relatively far up the card panel and finally ending on black so it was nice and bold. I just went in with a little felt pen there because I happen to not stamp properly. I'm not using my Misti. What am I thinking? And so then I'm just going to go in with another stamp here that's a beautiful sentiment stamp. I love how it has the outlines of the words, and so it makes it very clean and simple. And I thought I would stamp it a little bit differently on my card and stamp it here off to the side. The stamp here is called All Lined Up, and it has a variety of different sentiments on it, including thinking of you, you are the best, thanks, hi there, I'm here for you, hello, and sorry. So it's a great one to have in your stash because it has a whole bunch of different sentiments on it. You can see how cute, clean, and simple that looks. I think this next card here is a great example of how things can really change quickly with a card when you have something in mind. I decided to use the Handwritten Thanks dies to cut out a vellum, and I used a circle die from my stash, one of my nesting dies from Tonic, and I cut it out thinking that I could use this really fun vellum border and then stick a sentiment that was more of a solid color in the inside. I thought this would look super cute, and in the end, I didn't really care for it much at all. So I went ahead, I cut out the circle in vellum, then I cut out the thank you in mint, and I cut it out as well in white because I had no idea what I wanted to do with this stamp. And this die here is really great because it comes with a thick brush lettering of thank you as well as a thin brush lettering of thank you. So you can use them individually or you can stack them one on top of the other like it has a shadow. So I decided I had to do some sort of card surgery here, so I went in with my vellum, and I thought that just got lost. The mint on the mint, it didn't look good, it wasn't doing all of what I wanted it to do. So I went ahead and I actually grabbed some tape runner, I put the vellum on there thinking this is how I wanted to make this card, and then I noticed that I could see the vellum through, or I could see the glue through the vellum. Now that wasn't looking very nice, so I had to do something about it. So I went ahead, I glued this in here because I thought, you know what, it's going to be totally fine. I'm going to glue the shadow of the mint, and then I'm going to glue the white sentiment on the inside, and it's going to pop just fine. But again, I still felt like it was not enough, and everything was already glued and set in place. So I had to come up with some sort of creative solution for this problem. I mean, it didn't look bad at the moment. I just wasn't really like the vellum just didn't pop in this. So I grabbed a circle die that was slightly smaller than the one I used for the vellum, and I placed it around. I grabbed this panel that I'd cut the thank you die out of because I wasn't really sure how I was going to do this because I wanted to create another circular pattern in white so you could see a vellum border, then the white, then the sentiment. But of course, with everything already glued on, I wasn't sure how I was going to get the circle to be straight inside the sentiment. So it ended up being a relatively easy solution. I flipped the die upside down so I could cut from behind on this thank you, and I grabbed a piece of purple tape and I stuck it so that it was sticky side up so I could tape the vellum onto this card this sentiment that I had already created on my card panel. So it was able to pop it back up. I had the exact placement of what I needed, and I was able to run it through my die cutting machine. Then I was able to add a little bit of glue and just pop it directly over top of the sentiment. So now it was a perfect frame of vellum around my circle die as well as it fit the sentiment perfectly. Just make sure when you're gluing things like this down that you take the time to add your glue onto the areas in between, because when it goes through the mail and someone opens it, those areas can catch on the envelope and you don't want that to happen. So now I think it pops really, really well. You can still see the vellum sort of around the sentiment as well as around the circle. You have the sentiment already there. It's nice and popped, and it's all good to go. Nothing like a little card surgery on a Saturday afternoon. I decided to go in with several colors of Nuvo drops, for my cardstock here, this sort of minty color as well as white, and I thought that added just a little bit of extra to the card without distracting too much from the minty stripes. And I did this for pretty much all of the cards, so I wanted to go with a little bit of a rainbow theme here, and I realized I didn't have all the matching colors, so I just decided to use a couple of them. And I use mainly white to decorate these because white matches anything, so you don't really need to have all the matching colors. And the nice thing about using pattern paper here is I don't have to wait for my ink to dry. If you've ever used white Nuvo drops on a ink that is still a little bit wet, you'll notice that your Nuvo drops actually take on the color of the ink, or a lighter version of the color, so that's really nice. So for my next one, I had to come up with sentiments for all of those really fun pattern backgrounds that I created with the dies. And this stamp here, I bought a couple of months ago. I had to have it the moment I saw it. Paper Hug in a really thick sentiment as well as a thin font as well as a thick font. And I stamped these using my Misti, mainly because I knew I was covering a lot of solid space, so I wanted to be able to stamp a couple of times. because stamping this with a block would be a bit of a challenge just because it's quite a large area and you want to make sure that you have even pressure the whole time because as you saw I did have a little bit of ink that didn't transfer to the paper the first time. I then stamped a whole bunch of other sentiments here. I stamped the handwritten thank you. I stamped hello, which comes with the paper hug stamp set. And that stamp set is officially called Hugs and Hellos, not Paper Hug. And then I had this really cool sentiment here, and it says, I'm not just a card, I'm a hug with a fold in it, and I really like that one as well. So that comes with that Hugs and Hello stamp as well, the ones with the paper hug and the hello. And I just love the typography on it. I think that's where the stamp market really shines, is their fonts. They pick just really beautiful fonts to use with their sentiments. I love that hello, that it's kind of a little bit different, having that small E. It was just something I had to have. So to start wrapping everything up, for this black plaid background, I decided to go ahead with that Handwritten Thanks die. And I layered it in black as well as white, and I topped everything off with a couple of drops of red Nuvo. I always find a nice pop of red on a black and white card is just the perfect amount of color. Here's a final look at that card here, so you can see just how cute that ended up turning out. Then for the patterns here, I decided to add quite a few of those paper hugs, but I decided to change this one here, and this is that really fun sentiment that says I'm not just a card, I'm a hug with a fold in it. And I decided to stamp it on a piece of the pattern paper. So you can see here, for this one in particular, I didn't cover all of the spots with pattern paper and stamping. I left quite a few of them blank. And this way I was able to add a sentiment in front of one of those circles, which I thought was pretty clever, and I really liked the way that that turned out. It's a bit of an odd place for a sentiment for me too. And then by adding really large sentiments on white backgrounds on these backgrounds, I was able to just kind of tone down the overall look of the card by adding a large space of black and white. And I really love the way that those turned out. I tried to use the thinner typography on the ones that were more subtle and the thicker ones on the ones that were more pattern filled. And I think that that really turned out quite well and just really toned everything down. And I absolutely love the way that those looked in the end. Just wanted to quickly mention below that I do have a new feature in the supply list. So just above the supplies, you'll notice there's a new link that says constantly updated sales and releases. And here is a one-stop area that you can go to for any sales or new releases that have just come out. And what's really great about it is I get a small commission from those links, which helps support my channel, helps continue to keep me creating free content for everyone without having to go to any sort of paid subscription plan. So thank you so much everyone for your support, for using my links when you shop. And please think about supporting the stamp market. They're a really great company and they have lots of beautiful things. So I hope you enjoyed the final look at these cards. I also have a suggested video below as well as a link to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.